When you think of your stereotypical bear witcher, it is most likely that you will think of someone who, in a way, looks like Junod of Belhaven. A large, strong man with a thick beard. In Junod's case, they had found a different way of describing him, as people said he resembled the offspring of a dwarf and a giant. It of course is very unlikely to be true, and is most probably just a joke. But no matter if he was truly a mix of a giant and a dwarf, he still ended up in Hern Kadug as a young child. He survived the trials and the cold of the mountains, and would eventually set out on the path as a bear witcher. When he set out, he had to pick a name to seem more trustworthy to peasants. Junod decided that he liked the sound of using of Belhaven, after the city of Belhaven, not too far from the Elm Mountains where the bear school lies. Junod was not from Belhaven, and him using this moniker would result in a bit of a conflict when he encountered a fellow bear witcher named Ivo of Belhaven, who did actually hail from the city. Ivo wanted to know why Junod had taken the same name. Junod decided that it wasn't an issue to use the same name, as he was convinced that Ivo would not survive out on the path very long, as he was somewhat smaller in size than the other bear witchers. Junod was presumably a somewhat capable witcher, seeing how at some point around 1243 he acquired grandmaster diagrams of his school's gear, which he of course wanted to have forged. And there was only one smith capable enough to forge this kind of armor and weapons: the legendary elf Tiensel. Junod travelled to Toussaint to meet Tiensel. The large towering witcher made quite an impression on the new apprentice of the armorsmith, who remembered him clearly and would recall that Junod seemed to be very skilled at haggling. But the price did not change, and Junod was a bit short on cash. The witcher had at first saved enough coin, but he was a bit of a gambler and lost the coin needed to pay the elf, leading to him needing to find a new way to get some coin, and thus he took on a contract at the Tuval vineyard and would pay the elf for his services after he had completed his task. On the 17th of May, 1243, Junod had accepted the contract. He managed to get quite a large sum promised to him once he had slain the beast. The amount was said to be almost as much as the vineyard's owner had set aside for his daughter's dowry. Junod explored the nearby grounds of the vineyard to learn more about what had caused damage to the property. His investigation led him to discover a cave complex in the nearby Marquescent forest. On the 18th of May, he informed the vineyard's owner of his findings and told him he would enter the caves the next day to slay the beast. When the next day came, Junod went underground into the Owl Eye grottos. But the witcher was not well prepared. He had no clue what kind of monster he was up against, and the need for coin made him desperate. He was both angry at the elf for asking so much coin, as well as the vineyard's owner for being a skinflint. Driven by need for coin, Junod decided that the only thing he could do was push forward, down into the dark depths of the cave.
Well, as long as you're sinking, might as well walk on the bottom.
He was not prepared for what he would find down there. He didn't know it was a Shielmar, a monster which poses a threat even against very experienced witchers. As he refused to go back, Junod decided that he shouldn't feel sorry for himself, and that while he was sinking, he might as well walk down to the bottom. The bear witcher would never leave that cave, as he died while fighting the Shielmar. After the witcher hadn't returned, the vineyard's owner became frustrated, and even more so when the young Lazare Lafargue came to the vineyard to ask about where the witcher was, as he was sent by his master Tiensel. No one ever heard from the witcher again, although his word of the presumed demise spread amongst witchers from his school, including the witcher Ivo of Belhaven, who didn't actually care about the news of his fellow witcher dying. But there's one question that remains. Why was Junod so driven to keep pushing on? We know that the School of the Bear has a focus on strength, but any sensible Witcher would have turned back to prepare and investigate more, to know what they were up against. It seemed like he might have been under some time pressure to get the armor as quickly as possible. In his journal, Junod wrote, "No point in going back, until I get a full set of gear." This will be a bit of speculation, but what if there was more behind Junod than just him wanting to have the armor for himself? What if he was sent by his school? It would explain how Junod managed to have the funds to hire the smith. Him losing the coin to gambling would make the other bears distrust him, maybe even going so far as to try and end his life for failing the task. This would give him a reason to be desperate enough to head into the caves unprepared, as the idea of what would wait for him if he failed to get the coin and return with the armor might have been worse. But for what reason would the bear school need grandmaster armor, and why would they send him? Well, it wouldn't be the first time a Witcher school sent a Witcher to Tiansil to have armor forged. Vesemir had done the exact same thing when he sent Adon of Carras to Toussaint. As to why the school might seek to acquire the armor, we might have to look to how the School of the Bear fell, because we don't know when exactly that happened. The Bear School at some point would be stormed by peasants, who were angry at the Witchers for not dealing with the vampire problem they had. So, what if Junod was sent to acquire the armor, which would have been used to deal with these vampires? But Junod failing to return would result in them not having the armor and also losing diagrams, and therefore not being able to deal with the vampires, leading to the downfall of the Bear School. It is quite a bit of speculation. We don't know if the School of the Bear was still operational in 1243, let alone if they had sent Junod or if he just wanted to acquire that set for himself. But he seemed extraordinarily desperate, like he had no time to spare. It also could explain how he got his hands on these diagrams, as some of the other diagrams came from Witchers who were sent either by their school or had stolen diagrams from other Witchers. So what do you think? Might there be something behind speculation, or was he just going after the armor for himself? Till next video.